How you doing, man?
Good. That's a dramatic entrance. Your
Dun, dun,
studio
dun.
looks fantastic.
How do I sound? How do I sound first?
You sound good as well, yeah.
It's a.
You got the clip on.
Yeah, but I'm gonna geek out with you straight away. I went over the top because I filmed an interview with a techno guy called Roberto, who's from UK, like London, but he was over in Berlin, working in a studio with a guy from Bristol, who apparently, when we were both kids, we probably skateboarded past each other at the same skate park in Bedminster in Bristol. So that guy has an incredible studio next to Richie Hortons and all those kind of top guys. And Roberto was out there visiting him, and I managed to film an interview with him. And I got my friend, who's a proper, like, what is he? He works at Ableton in the video department as a producer. So, but he never gets to get his camera out and actually film. And I brought him as my second camera, and he insisted. He said, "We have to use this lavalier microphone, Banken, the COS 11D." And I was like, yeah, be fine. And he's like, "No, we have to use it." We went, we hired one for like 15 euros or something for the weekend, and the difference was so incredible. And
is it a wired or a wireless one?
It is wired.
That's cool.
I'm very passionate about not making my life more difficult.
Don't want more batteries to charge. That's the key.
Well, it requires phantom power, and I got one which has the you put a battery in the kind of XLR connector.
Right. Yeah.
So, and it could be plugged into a little wireless unit. So maybe in the future I'll make my life more difficult. But for now, I got two, scouring eBay for them, and now when I do interviews, I plug them both into a Zoom H4 field recorder. And I kind of tuck it in my back pocket, and I have these wires like behind, and I say to the person, "Right, you have to be near me, stay near me." If we're like
close within cable range.
Yeah, I've just been at Hoxton Gallery last week for a friend, this girl called Wafa Love, who's been painting for about 8 years as well. She's a DJ and dancer, photographer, but she's really thrown herself into painting, and she's got her first exhibition there. And I said, "I'll come down, I'll film an interview with you." And so like I'm making her take me around every single painting, and but I'm like, stay close, like, and
tied together.
But I had the Insta360 One X on the stick was amazing, because I just held that between us and walk around, and so you get this amazing, like, it films us, it films the painting. You can choose in post what you have, and it makes the stick invisible. So it's handy.
Yeah, I like that. I was trying to figure out recently. I spent a real long time trying to figure out how to install Premiere and the there's like a GoPro Max extension for Premiere, which lets you edit those, post facto edit from the Sphere into
it won't work for me. It won't work for me. I've stuck with their own software, and I just do the work in their own software. And then
I just found that, like, after me trying to do this for ages and just kill it, because I've got a decent Mac, and it was just dying with Premiere, and really dying. And also there were some weird artifacts with, like, just weird holes would appear in the video. And then in the meantime, while I was trying to figure that out, Apple just silently released an update to Final Cut Pro, which inbuilt, just in Final Cut now, it just does spherical to flat editing. So now I don't even bother. I can just pull in the videos there and select my shots from Final Cut, which is fine, and it's hardware optimized, and I don't have to worry about paying Adobe 50 quid a month or whatever their Creative Cloud ends up being to keep access to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the Adobe boat at the moment, but I think it's really important to have at least skills in at least two pieces of software. So, because I think if you put all your eggs in one basket or boat or whatever we're going to use, it really endangers you. Like you end up becoming like lampooned, and you're just stuck on that. And like there's this amazing guy called Gene on Earth who's done a tutorial. It's like, I think it's 5.5 hours, and he did like the introductory offer of it, but it's basically how to make how to make tracks as good as he makes them.
Mm.
And he said, pretty much everything I do is on Ableton, but you can do this and you'll be able to apply most of it to Logic or Cubase or whatever else you want to use. And I just like, it was a really well put together. He makes really good music. He's not professing you have to use loads of hardware, which actually I have all around me. But he's just an endearing character. And I just thought, and it's like he did the clever introductory offer. Like it's normally €72, but for now you can get it for 35. So like, and I like his music. So I did it, and now I'm working through it and realizing, there's some really great things about Ableton. I don't think there's any one bit of software that kills it universally, whether it's video editing, music making, live streaming.
Yeah, indeed.
But before we go on to that, I like your setup as well. Like you're working on the mirror thing, right?
There's a mirror there.
That's great. Yeah. I love it.
It's more out of necessity, to be honest, with the studio, like the space that I've got in here. So, but we've definitely made the effort to spruce it up with extra bits and bobs. Naomi and I painted that in as one of our first lockdown activities, our Mondrian ripoff.
I was going to ask, no, inspired,
of course,
yeah,
a genuine one. And this is a poster that I got from an art student in Bulgaria. There was a student exhibition at the Communist Art Museum in Sofia, which is a really interesting exhibition. And I tracked down one of the students via the co-working space I was working in, because I really just love the poster. It was to celebrate I'm not sure if celebrate's the right word, but to commemorate, I suppose, the fall of the Soviet Union in 1989. And it's the star being skewered by a Coca-Cola bottle lid, which I thought was incredibly poignant. So I got that one reprinted when I got back to the UK, and that's up on the wall, up on the rental walls at the moment, the white walls. Exactly. Yeah.
Was the student born in 1989 or after?
That's
I think after.
Very most likely. I'm trying to think when I went through. Probably very unlikely before, I would say, because I was there in 2018, so they probably were likely to be, if they're younger than 19, which they most likely were, then they were not born then.
I only know this because I have a cousin who's 18 who I'm getting to, very talented photographer, and I'm trying to make her do all my editing, and she won't do it. But I have her interning for me quite a lot, and she keeps reminding me how old I am. And I realized when she was born, and it's just a bit scary. She wasn't, she's, what do you call them if they're born in the noughties? The Gen Z?
What's the marketing term? Yeah, Gen Z probably.
I call her a Z-lister anyway. But I think it's good to have someone around you who's got their finger on the pulse, because I most certainly haven't. Although, is there a pulse left? I mean, are you in Hackney Wick at the moment? Where are you?
No, in New Cross still.
Because Hackney Wick is like this island of it's just carried on. It just feels like nothing's changed. They just completely ignored it.
Yeah, there's definitely pockets of partying continuing. I mean, that's the thing. Like where I used to live, where I mean, the unit that I used to live in had 6 or 7 people living there, but the ones across the way had 15 people in there. So I mean, your bubble there is like 15 people. Your household is 15 people. So
mega bubble.
Yeah, it's sort of not really conducive to isolating, really. Everyone's sharing a kitchen and 2 toilets as well. So I mean, it's fantastic for some friends that have been there throughout lockdown, because they've got a community that they live with, and I suppose that's the flip side of living in a community, like a building that's designed around a community, is that in these situations you have a community. But also they have amazing outdoor space. The roof of the warehouse, you can sit out there on the sun.
We did a broadcast from there on ChewTV,
in fact.
Back in
I still have a recording of that one. Yeah, that famous.
I do too. Do you have it in high quality? Because I didn't save it in the highest quality.
Yeah, no, I probably still have the download from Facebook, unfortunately. There's a few streams that I wish I had copies of.
people still message me now through the Hoxton FM team like group.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have my show from blah blah blah
Really?
in like 2017? I was like, no, I don't actually. Didn't save that one. Gave everyone the opportunity. There was that option. But so I don't want to waste too much more of your time. You're very kindly giving it up for me on this new podcast, and I'm trying to just get chats with different people who have areas of expertise, experience, knowledge. I'm dubbing you all gurus, maybe shaman, I don't know, but you're my tech guru.
Yes.
And the reason I dub you with this title is because you started ChewTV, this platform that facilitates me allowing all the Hoxton FM shows to be streamed in higher quality, both video and audio, without copyright issues, with constant improvements, breaking new ground. Like literally, it seemed like every week we could give feedback, we could be beta testing. It was a golden age, wasn't it? When was that? What was the period of that? And can you give us an update? Because I sent you a thing last night about someone was harking back in a comment saying ChewTV was the best that ever was, and everyone else should take a leaf out of their book. Firstly, how does that feel?
It feels good. You tend to fixate on the negative comments, I think. So occasionally I take things like that. I've got and stick them up on my wall here to remind me of people appreciating the projects that I've spent many days and months and years working on. But I think the ChewTV project was interesting because it was almost it's the product itself, the success of the product itself led to its own demise in a way, because we were very much building a product based on what everyone in the community wanted and building the community around a live streaming, experience for DJs and producers and shows and stations like Hoxton. But it's very hard to build an actual business, a sustainable business around that. So whereas we focused entirely on like making the best product and making it open and accessible and easy to use and all these kind of bits, and building up a community of people that just really wanted to tune in and listen and engage and share, from streams from their bedroom was the majority of the people using it, or from their back room or their garage or whatever. The unfortunate fact is that no one was necessarily able to pay as much as it cost us to host all those videos and to stream all those videos longer term, and also pay the licensing fees once the labels start kind of knocking on the doors there, and also like try to start to impose the kind of restrictions that you see on other platforms. So yeah, it was definitely a golden age, and it's interesting because it didn't feel too far ahead at the time, because Twitch was very early on then. I think it just switched from Justin TV. But Facebook Live didn't have a product, didn't exist. YouTube Live, I don't think existed either. So it was in the era of Ustream and livestream.com, if you remember those websites.
I do remember those pixelated days, yes.
Yeah, much more for kind of businesses, B2B kind of companies. And then since we launched Chew, live streaming was really launched to a consumer market through Periscope, actually, and Meerkat, if you remember Meerkat, the kind of social media versions of social live streaming brought to social to wider audiences, and then it got integrated into Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and Periscope got bought by Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And now it's interesting because you see that same cycle happening in other spaces. So podcasting, I started listening to This Week in Tech podcast or the Dig Nation podcast maybe 15 years ago, or more, 16 years ago, and they were just people chatting in a microphone, recording their thoughts and feelings and experiences and sharing that with the world online. And now, a few years ago, suddenly it became the next booming business, right? So you get the Gimlet Medias who raise hundreds of millions of dollars and then go on to sell to Spotify. You get Joe Rogan selling his show to Spotify, all that kind of stuff. It's like it becomes
just for 2 years, and they just want his traffic, and then they'll throw him off. Well, not throw him off, but they'll. It's a very interesting one. I mean, I guess you take the money up front and move to Texas. It's a funny one. I mean, it's almost like I almost like not despise, but it just seems like everyone's so thirsty now. Everyone's thirsty for like clicks and views and likes, and they're trying to make content, and they run out of ideas So they get thirstier, like more desperate. They're like an aging, pretty person, won't get sexist here, who's starting to lose their looks, and they're kind of get more and more desperate and try harder, and it looks more and more, it's more and more difficult to consume it because they've literally run out of ideas. And I feel like they haven't got a strong basis or premise or the, you know, the whatever got them to the dance. My analogy is going really far here, but whatever got them to the dance, they've kind of run out of moves. Like, so it's a real shame.
Yeah.
It's a real shame. I mean, like, I guess you have to have either a continuous flow of great guests, which I guess Rogan kind of does. And he has unique, like, unique tentacles into so many different areas. And he's been doing it a long time, back in I think the live stream or Ustream days, like, can't remember what he used to use, but it's quite interesting to see the evolution of what he's done. But I mean, let's like, I don't want to dwell too much on the past. I've got my questions here, but can I really quickly ask if you did ChewTV again? So what would you do differently? Is there one thing you do differently, or would you do so much differently, or you know that it wouldn't have worked whatever you did because there was just a time and a place kind of thing going on and a scale? Or
well, it's interesting because I've actually now I've had, you know, a little bit of time away from it, and now I've still been in the live streaming world with the StreamOn product and recent acquisition. I'm in a position where, you know, I'm able to kind of think a lot more longer term about how some of these things look. And I'm, as a techie, as your tech guru, I've been I love technology, and I'm always interested in technology from a pure development point of view, like from a real geeky point of view. And so I have been keeping an eye on a lot of the current buzzwords and things like artificial intelligence. Of course, that applies more to like the music products that I'm working on potentially, but also potentially to visual analysis of media, whether it's live streams or pre-recorded content, enabling things like automated editing, auto clipping, to help discovery of live stream content, because it's very hard right now. It's also a problem that exists in podcasts to actually get people to come and listen to it. If your podcast is like 3 hours long,
one of many,
and there's and one of many as well, and there's a conversation in the third hour about something that someone is you know, interested in, it's very hard for people to discover it. So that applies quite interestingly to live streams as well as recorded content and podcasts as well. But also looking at if I was to do Chew again specifically, I would probably actually look much more at the decentralized web. And blockchain is obviously, you know, Bitcoin, all that stuff is just crazy now. It's just become like, you know, taxi drivers are talking about it. But there's actually an interesting mental shift that goes on behind a lot of the kind of more legitimate companies in the space that aren't just in it for sort of for, you know, day trading or whatever, creating a new coin to fund some other project. There's some really interesting technology around decentralized authentication, and effectively blockchain is a decentralized database. So you could do something really interesting around Chew, and also at the same time in the live streaming world, there's technologies, a lot more peer-to-peer technology built into the browser nowadays, and mobile browsers as well. So for the StreamOn project, we use technology called WebRTC, which has now been around for many, many years. And it's what enables, actually, I'm not sure if Zoom use it, but it's what enables Google Hangouts or Google Meet as it is now to work. And most video chat applications, even Skype now uses WebRTC, web real-time communication protocols under the hood. And so we're now this kind of combination of technologies means you could do something super interesting with a live streaming community, or not even necessarily even a live streaming community, but a music community, which could include sharing music files as well as sharing live streams or recorded videos, in that you could have an entirely or a partially peer-to-peer music community. So rather than
that's the live streaming.
Exactly, Napster in the 2020s.
Could you have done it back then, all those years ago, 3 years ago,
4 years ago? Yeah. could have done elements of it, but it just wasn't really in the zeitgeist, I suppose. It just at the moment.
Could you have brought in like a really hard-edged, hard-nosed, like MD sales guy, put him on a different floor to you so he doesn't like affect your creative and tech guru-ness, and just let him get on with it, and just kind of be the sharp-nosed kind of person that's getting the deals, getting the revenue in, or do you think like it was just a time and a place, and you just take it on the chin, you move on, you've got all these other projects which you've alluded to, like Send Music, you've got StreamOn is the big one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like maybe if ChewTV had been successful or more successful, it would have stopped you doing these projects.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
have the knowledge that you have now. It was completely you doing StreamOn, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas you brought in other people, partners and stuff with Chew. So like, and I mean, yeah, like tell me, do you think realistically, with all the knowledge you have now, anything would have been different, or was it just a kind of a time and a place?
Yeah, I think it would have been hard to get out of the situation that's founded that company. I think when you start a project, you don't know the same amount as when you come out the other side, right? So I think those initial steps are what defines where the company ends up. I remember in the accelerator program we were on an Ignite, people were complaining about, someone already has the same idea that we have, our genius startup idea. But actually you can take the same idea and you can end up in completely different places. If you look at if you take my great startup idea is that we have a set of chat, and we're working remotely, we can chat online and we can collaborate over work. So one company can take that and make that a web-based platform that integrates with code management, all that kind of stuff, and that makes Basecamp, and that's a massive profitable remote work company.
Yeah.
One company can build it and say, okay, we want this to be really efficient with integrations on third-party services. We want it to be across all platforms, Mac, PC, phone, and we want to make it all have automated notifications about when people are on holiday and at work, and then that ends up being Slack, and that's a massively successful company. Another company can take exactly the same idea and they can say, okay, we've noticed that one group of people that really talks a lot is gamers, and they want to be able to chat in voice as they're playing games, super low latency, and they want to have these privacy modes so that if they're streaming, they don't put their chats on the screen by accident, and then they end up with Discord, right? So you can take the same idea and you can, depending on how you push it and your previous experience, you can
different
you can
markets.
take it in a completely different end product, sometimes even in the same market, but it's an entirely different solution into the problem. So I think it would have been hard potentially for Chew in its form to get there, and I do think if I'd continued to pursue that, I think it would have only ever been in that form quite a tough business to run as a business. Obviously, the product is separate in a way. We could have continued to improve the product, work on the product, but I think it wouldn't necessarily have enabled the opportunity to work on the new and exciting next thing, I suppose. So I think looking back, it's probably a good thing, and the same thing looking back on more recent, business decisions. Sometimes they're hard in the moment, but actually, generally, after a little while, looking back, you can see the positive strands that come out of the negative moments in any business career. I think you
have greater perspective.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
and
really,
experience
it's really
from it.
great
You
to
learn
see.
not what to take, not what not to take. What you learn to trust your own decision making, and also you learn when you made mistakes as well, and where you can improve, and not try and avoid those mistakes in the future, or at least be aware of them, or aware of the different situations that you can get in, and how to manage those, and what you need to learn more about longer term.
The consequences of not taking decisions at specific times, I think, is one of those. I mean, it's very interesting seeing Justin TV, like one of the founders of Twitch. He has a YouTube channel and he's kind of telling all the stories of San Francisco and like back in that era, and all the failed projects, all the startups that they got funding for, and how much funding you can get now for a nothing kind of project that has a very low chance of succeeding. It's kind of crazy, everything he says. And, like even them selling Twitch for like it was meant to be 2 billion, and then it was like 1 billion, and then it was like 1.5. You know, like it's so interesting. It's really great when someone is like that open about stuff. I mean, he probably doesn't tell everything, but and you know, strapping a camera to him to have this like voyeuristic view of everything when they first started and things. I think it's really great. And I think I love the analogy. I love analogies, but the VHS tape, the videotape, was the successful format, but there was Betamax, which was actually kind of better. But there was first mover advantage. There was like distribution issues, but no one knows about Video 2000, which was another format, which was double-sided videotape. And it was, you don't know this, but when you used to rewind or fast forward, you get sound bars, like it would all scramble. Like, so people put that effect on their video now just to be retro, but it would scramble. And like with Video 2000, it's like you're moving forwards and backwards on a DVD. So just little things that was like so much better about it. Longer tapes, higher quality, double-sided. Like it failed. It was way better. It failed, and I think it was just a number of factors. And it's like, I think having a great idea and even having great people is not good enough. Like there has to be an element of chance. I don't want to say luck, but chance. And I think your experiences have helped you increase your propensity to, you know, have chance fall in your favor. And like, so, and in that sense, let's talk about your success. Tell us what's going on with StreamOn. Can I describe StreamOn as a better version of Restream?
You're welcome to describe it as that. Yeah.
So just for anyone who doesn't know, like with streaming, you can send your signal to Facebook Live or Periscope, so it's on Twitter or YouTube. But if you send that signal, if you want it to go onto all of those platforms and you send the signal 3 times, you very quickly run out of your bandwidth. And in the UK particularly, like my download speed here is probably 200 megabits per second, but my upload speed is only 20. So I've got a much more limited broadcast potential. So some clever people decided, why don't you just send it to one place and then disseminate that signal to multiple destinations? And the kind of market leader in my eyes, maybe I'm wrong, was a company called Restream, I think based in Romania by their .io web address. And they were okay, they were quite good, but they have fallen down quite a lot recently with certain applications. Their desktop application, which would require you to not need any software to broadcast from the desktop, the audio and video quality is awful. I tried to use it. I tried to use your StreamOn last year for a project, a whole weekend of DJs broadcasting from all around the world, non-stop, like 48 hours, something like that. And I was recommending everyone use that. And after 2 broadcasts, we realized that it was just really poor quality. But we couldn't use yours because you had, tell us what happened. You'd created this platform. I was super keen to use it, and you went, there's a problem.
Yeah, well, after just 9 months since we kind of relaunched after coming back, I was traveling around the world, and then I ended up having to come back in March due to COVID last year. We being me and 2 developers who are now part of the indie family, the indie organization, rebuilt the StreamOn product that you just described from scratch to include an element similar to the Restream one you mentioned, which is like an in-browser broadcasting system. But within 9 months of coming back, we ended up, the company was acquired, basically, or the product was acquired from Indie, from my startup studio company, just right off the bat, and it came out of a real just an instant kind of explosion in that industry. I mean, you mentioned Restream. They've been a long-time leader in that stream forwarding market, but they launched their studio product, their in-browser broadcasting suite, effectively quite late on in the game. There was one kind of outstanding leader called StreamYard, which kind of again launched just at the right time to take over the live streaming world, as everyone suddenly had to work from home. They also had to realize how to maybe bring their businesses online from from yoga studios, streaming classes to music teachers, or well, I suppose school teachers as well. Anything that required broadcasting from one to many, suddenly was looking for a tool to do it. And tools like this, like Zoom and Hangouts and Meets, they're all designed around meetings, not which is many to many communication in most cases, although you obviously can do webinars and things with them. But there's that left this big gap for one to many, and one to a lot real dissemination, one-way dissemination events, and that's why the whole market boomed. So Restream, within that 9 months, Restream received $20 million in funding from an investment round. StreamYard sold the company for 200 million, I think it was, or maybe they were making 200 million in revenue. I can't remember, but incredibly high numbers. They've grown from zero to millions, to hundreds of millions of annual revenue within a year, effectively. And we were just we were super early on, but we'd already, with the experience building Chew, and we had many years of live streaming experience behind us that enabled us to create the product very quickly. And effectively, we were purchased by a company which will announce hopefully later in the year who it is, and to basically fast forward their entry into this market. So it's it was
you were hot property basically. Anyone with a brain who wants to be anywhere near that realm, it would make more sense to buy all your hard work and expertise and skill that's already been put in, than to try and do it themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're in the right place, the right time, with the right experience,
exactly,
the right work ethic that you put in all these hours, the right developers, all of that. Like,
yeah, exactly. I think that was really it. 'Cause I think the product was at a early stage, but fully integrated and working. I think the main thing that clinched it was just the fact that that I've built a live streaming platform from scratch before in the past, right? I think if anyone, I think it would have been significantly harder to get to be acquired if that experience, if I didn't have that experience, because part of the deal is working through building out what the next version of live streaming tools look like, which is also quite exciting to work on. And there's some really interesting tech that's coming out all around that WebRTC protocol that will hopefully give you some future tools, because there's some real interesting work around streaming music over WebRTC, which
streaming music's dead anyway. I'm like way past that. Like Hoxton FM was a really, really fun thing to do, and it nearly killed me. But running a radio station has killed people, but not me. I'm really excited to be putting the Forward Movement podcast through Hoxton FM, and I'm looking at who we can work with in partnership to do stuff. But I think streaming music is just everyone and their dog can do it now, and is doing it. And I'm really keen to do just more thoughtful content, more thought-provoking content, interviews with artists, labels, different people, and I'm excited about the partners that we can do it with and the locations we can do it. So I'm not saying I'm never going to live stream again, but I'm really passionate about like higher quality everything. So yeah, and it's really great to see you doing what you're doing. What's so funny is that today I've just been asked to give a guest lecture at digital spin-off part of Nottingham Trent University. Okay. And I've got to teach these students all about live streaming.
Ah, interesting.
The technical side, and which goes back to what I started on about knowing more than one piece of software, because obviously I use Wirecast, which is a very, very professional piece of software, a bit more powerful, but everyone else uses OBS because it's free. Yeah. And so I've got I know all these kids are going to be using OBS, so I'm going to go back to that. And
it's interesting how the range of tools it scales up. I've done a lot of comparison across the tools recently, and it's interesting to see. It depends entirely on who they're targeted to, what the app excels at. So obviously, I think Wirecast excels at is going for the sort of
semi-pro
sports. Yeah, exactly. Community sports events, church events. Yeah,
there's a lot of churches in America, and a lot of those what are they called? the mega churches with the super pastors who
like
fly around in private
televangelism.
jets. Yeah, I think you benefit a lot from plugging in a piece of hardware like a live switcher or something. And you know, I remember we did a broadcast from that cannabis club in Barcelona. And every time we switched camera, it turned the volume down, and I could not for the life of me work out why. And you had to leave because, I mean, you're not a smoker, but we'd all obviously got kind of passively stoned. And by the end, I realized what it was is the preview window has a volume control as well. And that was set to 0. So every time you switched from what you were previewing, it turned the volume. I was too passively whatevered to notice. So it was kind of too much control, too many options, too many things.
Sometimes it gives you just enough control to
mess up,
to cause you problems, isn't it? Yeah,
it's like longer shoelaces, just long enough to trip you up. But I mean, actually, I did a consultation with someone who wants to do like live yoga streams, and did an hour consultation with him. He was insisting on using his computer, which is a little bit old. He had his DJ controller. I was showing him a clever bit of routing, what to do. He had these like silent disco headphones for everyone, and he was playing music to all these people doing yoga as well, and talking to them. And came to the end of the hour, and I was like, but of course you could do all of this from your phone. And you would have less problems. You could DJ off a computer and then broadcast from your phone. Let's stick a moment lens on there. Let's get a nice like audio going into the lightning connector. And I had to put him on that route, and he's like, oh, why didn't you tell me this before? And I said, well, you insisted, you wanted to do it. But I think the simpler you can get it, start simple and work your way up. Start with Velcro shoes.
I mean, there's just so many ways to do anything in live streaming these days. I think, you could do the same setup multiple times.
Have you done that with StreamOn? Have you made StreamOn really easy to use?
I think that would definitely be the way we're going with it. Is to really guide people through the process of going live. Because also the one thing that's interesting is that, as you know, from being involved in many live streams, like running a live stream is incredibly stressful. So what you don't want in the last minute is like the tool to stress you out by giving you, like you say, by muting your track whenever you change camera lens or all this kind of stuff. So I think building a system that's a bit more bulletproof and that you can rely on so that you can make the content better. I think that's what it comes to at the end of the day. It's like, can you actually get the tool to sit a little bit more out of the way? Maybe be slightly less powerful in a true sense, in terms of you can't do 16 channel multi 4K mix with an audio mixer, inbuilt audio mixer and effects, but you can, but what it can do is, get out of your way to the point where you can make a good show that people want to watch. I think that's the goal. And I think that's where like a lot of the web-based tools will end up much more like an app that guides you through, rather than a tool which is very generic and built around the tradition and of how a video production mixing desk used to work in broadcast mixing 15 years ago or something like that. And that's where I think the excitement and the potential innovation comes in the coming years. I think the technology is now far enough advanced that you can pretty much stream live using WebRTC from most browsers. The one exception actually is Safari, which is interesting.
Is that HTML? Is that the HTML thing, or?
Well, we've just this year got rid of Internet Explorer, which used to be the software developer's nightmare, because you had to still support an old versions of IE, and the APIs were inconsistent, and we were just sighing that collective. So Safari is the new
Internet Explorer, is what you're saying.
And now Safari is the new Internet Explorer because of the privacy additions that they're trying to brand themselves as the privacy first browser, right? And so in the way they're doing that is that what they're starting to do is limit access to certain APIs that Chrome, for example, might open up, which in most cases aren't actually for. I mean, obviously they're limiting the ones which are entirely for, data collection and things like that, which just makes sense. But also, unfortunately, because of the way that advertisers have been very sneaky, they quite often use APIs to identify a user. So, for example, if as an advertiser, I can be very sneaky and I can look at all of the webcams you have connected to your computer. And even if we're both on the same MacBook Pro
Yeah.
13-inch, the same model, the same browser. I've got Logitech camera plugged in, and you've got a capture card plugged in, so they can identify
GoPro Hero
us.
4
Exactly,
with a capture card. Yeah.
So what Safari is now doing is starting to limit advertising related APIs, and they're slowing down the development on integrating APIs that Google and Firefox are integrating around different web technologies. So now we're in a new situation where you have to build for Chrome, test on Firefox, it works 90% of the time, and then test on Safari. And if you're trying to do cutting edge video stuff, there's some things you just can't get it to do. So
which browser do you use? Which browser do you use?
I mean, I'm fully in the ad supported Chrome world, to be honest. I think
balls deep in Chrome.
Yeah, I just I find, as a developer, I want the cutting edge thing, but and also I'm not massively.
Have you tried Opera?
Yeah, Opera Mobile. That's what I use as my daily browser.
Your daily driver.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's just funny. I mean, if you could tell everyone one thing they should do that would like make their life easier, maybe make your life easier, just like with regards to tech, what would it be? Would it be like stop using Safari, or like
I mean, you just can't stop using Safari. That's the problem, because it's the default on the world's most popular singular mobile device, the iPhone. It's not the most popular operating system for mobile devices, but it's the single most popular phone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So
you just can't avoid using Safari, unfortunately, these days. So yeah, I don't really know what the answer is. I think I'm definitely very aware of the privacy concerns in general, and I do have ad blockers here and there for when I just reach horrific sites that are unusable without an ad blocker on. But equally, I'm definitely more aware of the fact that, maybe being in the industry as well, I'm just like, I'm a bit more aware of the trade-offs there to a smaller extent around, I would much rather have the latest browser APIs and be unified across systems and be able to use these, cutting edge apps versus potentially blocking those off to stop some ad company tracking me. But I understand that's not an easy trade-off to make, or it shouldn't be the trade-off we have to make, to be honest. We should be able to have fully featured phones and also not have brands track us across those apps. But unfortunately, we don't quite live in that world yet. Maybe
marketing and advertising needs to be revolutionized in order for a more progressive approach to be taken, and the desire to track every potential customer rescinds somewhat. But I could be being idealistic.
I mean, direct payment could be the way forward. If you're talking about blockchain and decentralized financial systems, potentially, if you have a browser that tracks, I think Brave, the browser, has this. It tracks your your navigation across the web, which is quite ironic because it's anti-tracking, I suppose. But it distributes your attention, effectively your attention token across the sites that you visit, and that way the site can get a token which potentially has value over time, or at the time that you're giving it to the sites that you visit and the sites that you spend time on, and you don't have to sell your future purchase decisions to a third-party company that wants you to buy their product. You can literally monetize the attention that a customer gives you on the site they visit without advertising in general, which obviously freaks out big ad companies and companies like Google as well. But it's a question of whether it's scale up as well, whether actually people will want to do that, whether the tokens will remain valuable. But it's an interesting concept altogether. The web wasn't born and made with advertising built in, right? Advertising came to the web pretty early on, if you look at your internet history. So it's not a given that the internet has to be primarily funded by influencing your decision to buy a certain product.
Yeah, no one should look at my internet history. But I mean, the thing I really despise is I research something that I want to purchase, I purchase it, and then for the next 3 months, I'm being marketed the thing I've already bought in every like banner ad and everything. It's like, I've already bought this. You go onto the little thing and you kind of click, I don't want to see this, I've already bought this, and it still comes up. And it's just you've got all this technology to be really intelligent, but it's almost like they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they do the really intelligent stuff, it spooks people out, right? Like I remember reading Permission Marketing by Seth Godin when I was studying at business school, and him saying like the loyalty card thing where Walmart started monitoring what people were buying and then printing vouchers on the back of the receipt. So it's like, oh, you're buying nappies, here's a discount voucher for baby food.
Yeah.
And people would see their receipt and they would get so spooked out because they're like, oh my God, they know we've got children. They know the exact age of them, but you know, like it's, yeah.
And there's a certain amount of pattern matching there as well, because I remember people used to just, you know, when the iPod Shuffle came out, people used to be convinced that Apple had this amazing algorithm that would, you know, predict the perfect playlist for them every single time they put on, you know, on their iPod Shuffle. But, you know, it wasn't, it was just randomized selection of the music you put on there. So you have this ability
the human
to
mind,
find
the human
patterns
mind like sees patterns and things, doesn't it? It's like when I'm doing video editing and there's a track and there's a beat and something, like the person can be off beat by quite a lot, but it kind of, your brain is like, oh, they're kind of like close and like, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. So before I let you go, you were cycling around the world. You decided to do this really inspiring, like take a bike that your dad gave you that had, what did it say? Grand Tour? What did it say?
World Tour, the Doors World Tour bike. Yeah.
You completely refurbed it and you said, I'm going to ride around the world on this.
Yes.
And how far did you get?
I got 27,000 kilometers across 25 countries to Indonesia. So I got probably about a third of the way around the journey. If I look back at it now.
Life's now got in the way, like in various ways. How committed are you to resume?
It's an interesting one because, yeah, I definitely have new and exciting challenges right now. And also I think that kind of trip falls within a certain, it takes a lot of energy and alignment to trigger and to work. And there's some real, obviously, global factors right now that still limit a lot of the kind of border crossings and things like that. And that the boring underlying stuff that makes up the ability to do an ongoing trip like that. And at the same time, you know, the business is just incredibly, you know, with the acquisition of StreamOn, it's just put me into an entirely new world in terms of running and growing that business. So I still have the kind of passion and excitement to do it. I think it just depends a lot on when the other external factors align, and if they align, I suppose.
You're going to have to make them align. You're going to have to make a lot of them align, I think, and obviously your timing will. But you were living the digital nomad lifestyle. You were cycling, and you had your laptop, and you were still working, consulting, doing all this stuff, like teaching me a lot about all the places you were going to. I didn't know Bulgaria had such fast internet.
Yes. Yeah, I think the key time would be around February next year. That's when the agreement for the StreamOn acquisition kind of comes up for potential termination or renewal. And I think
you could actually take a break then. You could actually
potentially, potentially. That could be it. I could literally walk away, and that's the StreamOn product, the StreamOn project complete from my point of view. It would now be fully in the world in another form.
So they've hijacked all your intellectual property. They squeezed every drop out.
I wouldn't say hijacked.
No.
Significantly rewarded me for.
They didn't pay out a lot of money for it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that'd be the time. But it just depends a little bit, on how possible it is. And so I mean, the significant next legs of the trip would be crossing north to south in South America and up the east coast of Africa. Wow. So it depends a lot on the state of the world, I have to say.
Well, you've got to be careful on those American roads. I mean, all roads, but American roads, like, the likes of James Cracknell, Olympic rower, he got knocked off his bike, and like anyone less extremely fit and rugged as him, I think would have died. And he had like a traumatic brain injury, and he has recovered now. He's recovered and joined the Cambridge rowing team and won. But like, it really is not a great place to ride a bike, I think. Like,
yeah, well, yeah, that's definitely.
Where's the worst place to ride a bike so far?
Probably. Well, I haven't ridden a bike in the US, but I've heard from all cyclists I've met, the US is the worst place. Just the lack of respect for cyclists, I think, is fairly universal in a lot of states. Obviously, it's a massive country, so I'm sure that there's definitely states where that's not the case. But
and where's the best? Where's the worst?
Well,
where's the best?
I mean, France is like the home of cycling. People will love you, will absolutely love you in France for. I think you're a hero for cycling across the country there. But the interesting thing is, most people would expect that, like, you know, most Westerners, I suppose, would expect that cycling would be terrified of cycling in, you know, Southeast Asia, or, you know, in India, across India, for example. And would think that the US would be more of a doddle. But actually, from the experience, from the reading that I've done, and the cyclists that I've met who are going the other way when I was on the road, they've almost universally found cycling in the US terrifying, and cycling in India like pretty mad. But also, just like the flow there is you just join the flow, right? You're amongst the cows and the trucks and the mopeds all at once, and you just move together. Whereas in the US, I think it's just you versus the Ford F-150s. So yeah, that's universally been my experience too. Yeah, it's all. I just enjoy being on the road, to be honest. I think
one extreme to the other, right? You've gone one extreme to another, like super extreme. You were, yeah. I did want to ask you about why you think Zoom's done so well compared to other people. I mean, my personal thing is I can't use this camera on Google Chat. It just will not, or Google Meet. Let me do it. I was trying to do it with my friend in Japan. But it didn't work. So I was kind of insisting to you, let's use Zoom, because it's actually usable, and I can have my system plugged in with the audio and it works. So
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe as a web developer and as a developer of an entirely browser-based live streaming product, I just feel like installing some weird system application that constantly runs in the background is just totally pointless. So I'm really not a fan of Zoom personally.
Right.
I know that it's more stable. Well, actually, I don't know about that, but it seems to be a bit more robust, and it gives you a lot more control over the stream. I mean, over the meeting, in terms of, like, you know, passcodes and breakout rooms and all that kind of stuff. But I always default to Google Meet. They've completely rebuilt it or revamped the user experience since the beginning of the pandemic, and it's much more easy to use, I think, now, and it's got all the gubbins that you'd expect, the virtual backgrounds and things which it didn't necessarily have. It's really, I think the last year or 18 months really now has inspired Google to look at that product again, obviously. So I still go for that time in and time out, really. But I know Zoom has got a good following, and I still have my Zoom accounts, obviously, to access everything that requires it. But yeah, you can do, that's the amazing thing. You know, you can do all of this now in the web. I mean, in theory, you could build an entire Wirecast in the web at the moment,
right?
With the technology that we have. It probably only work in Chrome and maybe in Firefox, but you could pretty much do that now. Yeah, in terms of the actual capture card scenario, that's maybe a little bit different, but I think things are they're coming along. I've got the A10 Mini here, which I know you have or had, and
I still have it. I can make it work with USB-C.
Yes, yeah. So that's, you know, as we move to peripherals like that, they use the same USB-C, and as long as you're endowed with the correct port or adapter, you can just connect it and it shows up as a webcam. So I think we should pretty much soon be in a world where you can buy a bunch of those Canon Micro Four Thirds cameras out of the box with a USB-C webcam mode. Right. You can plug 4 of those into a MacBook Pro, maybe 3 in an Ethernet adapter, maybe, and broadcast from the browser. I think we're pretty close to that scenario. In the coming.
I want something. All right, this is my freebie to you, but maybe you'll end up starting another company doing it. But, broadcasting off of phones is great. Like even the other thing I've done playing about is I've managed to connect this mic to my phone and have the lens on it as well. Yeah. So I could sit in the park and do a podcast in the park. Really good quality.
Very nice.
Audio and picture. I could record it to the phone, or I could live stream it, assuming I've got a good enough connection. The real thing that would change the game completely is if I could link phones. If I could have a second camera wirelessly linked from one phone to the other, that would be a complete game changer. If you can daisy chain phones and kind of live mix or, you know, have it like, this is the other good thing with Zoom and Google Meet is when I talk, it changes to me. And when you talk, it changes to you, like the camera angle. It's that sort of thing would be absolutely killer. So I look forward to you making that and making my life easier.
I think there are products out there too. I think my dad uses the Padcaster world of products. I think
I'll look into
things
it.
like that. But yeah,
a shiatsu guru.
Exactly. Yeah, shiatsu guru. So I think it's just, there's definitely some different technical challenges there around how you keep consistent low latency, high quality streams going in and out of those setups. But I think what the mobile platforms have done, especially now Apple, are just throwing everything into that iPad Pro. You can buy an iPad Pro, which is more powerful than this i7 MacBook Pro that I've got here now, which is fantastic, really. You can...
You're not going to go for an M1?
I will do probably in the next iteration. I'm just waiting for a few little developer tools.
Waiting for the software to be written that actually works.
Exactly, yeah. No, what I'm actually waiting for is the 12-inch MacBook Pro that's the same form factor as the iPad, but with a full keyboard. And it'll probably be the MacBook Air. I reckon it'll be branded MacBook Air, or maybe a branded MacBook. But that way I can, when I jump back on the bike, I can put it in one of the new Apidura bags instead of having all those big panniers on. And I think once Apple come out with a 12-inch M1 MacBook that's faster than the i7 here, and it has it weighs 600 grams, that'll be the prime machine for me to travel with, I would say.
Well, I hope you will be traveling with it, and I look forward to catching up with you in person at some point, and maybe one day we'll work with each other again. I would love it, but I think you've kind of moved on to a higher stratosphere now as a successful entrepreneur. I'd love to do this again. I promise I won't take up as much of your time as I have this time, which is meant to be half an hour. I've taken an hour. Perpetual line stepper I am.
Always happy to chat.
Yeah, it'd be great to just do this regularly. I mean, I know we were doing kind of occasional podcasts as you were going around the world. We did one from, I was in Tokyo. I can't remember where you were. You were in Bulgaria a few. You were
in Goa. I think I was for one of them, and then maybe that was with another guest, cyclist. An outside guest,
another cyclist. Yeah,
yeah.
No, it'd be really, really great to keep doing this, and I hope that you can get back to new normal.
Exactly, whatever that means.
Yeah.